I just wanted to firstly start off with how you got into the folk punk scene and what attracted you to it.
Well, I started playing music when I was about 15. I started playing piano, and my brother had started his band Days and Days around that time. He was probably like 17, but I think he started playing with Whitney when he was 16, and they were about to go on a tour, and he was like, "Hey, you think you could play a washboard?" And I was like, "I have no idea what the fuck that is, but I'll try." And I was terrible at it, but he was like, good enough. And I went on my first tour with them when I was like 16 just to try and like fill the sound out on like the worst sounding washboard ever.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is there any highlights of that tour for you?
Oh man, there's a lot. That first tour that we went on together was like split in half. First we went like all like east, like to like Florida-ish, and then we came back home and then went up like west all the way to Washington. It's been so long now that I can't like think of like any like I mean, there's like, bits and pieces, but like I guess there's this one time that I always think of on that tour that like back then like busking was like how we got around like gas jugging and stuff. And we were in Alabama and like this guy was like, "Hey, I don't have any money, but do you guys eat meat?" And we were like, "Yeah, I guess." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Well, I have like 10 pounds of meat in the back of my truck if you want to like grab some of it." And we were like, "Sick, okay." Because I mean, that's free food if we're just, out spanging and shit. So we got all this meat and we bought like one of those like just cheap styrofoam ice chests from the gas station and put all the meat in there. And we were traveling with my dog at the time, my dog Lady. And we ended up in Florida somewhere that night and we just like got out of the car for like 5 minutes to go ask like these folks if we could sleep on their floor. And we came back and Lady had karate chopped the ice chest and ate like 9 pounds of the meat. And we were
Oh my
so
God.
I've never seen my brother so mad in my whole life. But she did leave, like, some bratwurst or something, which we cooked in the snow on a shitty little Coleman camping stove, so at least there was that.
It's a pretty awesome story. And what are some qualities you'd say folk punk has, like some three main qualities that come to your mind when you think of the genre folk punk?
Welcoming is a good one. Usually everyone's pretty welcome. Wild, probably, I would say, definitely, like, a party scene going on there. And, I guess inspiring, it's inspiring to see people just, kind of get out there with whatever they got at the time and just spilling their heart out on the floor to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, definitely. And what sort of political ideologies do you think are sort of tied to folk punk compared to just punk rock?
I would like to think that folk punk leans to the more. I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask because if you're talking about like just like random folk punk kids, there's like I don't know how to put this. I know like a lot of folk punk kids that are like more leaning to like the politically correct side. I identify with that side and I'm like a non-binary person and identify with like the queer, PC side of folk punk. But I guess I really don't think it's like that much different than just punk. It's all, you know, we'd like to think everyone like just hates Nazis and
Yeah.
President Trump and shit.
Do you think there's a bigger space for queer people within folk punk rather than punk rock?
Oh, definitely. I would say so. In folk punk, there's like even more like a subculture almost in folk punk that I feel like is like the queer folk punks, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That are
definitely.
like,
Yeah, and where do you see this genre sort of going in the future, or if you were to picture it 10 years down the track, do you think things would have changed or?
I hope that people keep playing folk punk, but at the rate that I've seen things going, at least in the States, it seems like a lot of folk punk bands like Rent Strike and We the Heathens and other bands, Ludlow, other like folk punk bands seem to have been taking like an electric thing on, which is interesting. You can kind of see the shift because I feel like a lot of like folk punkers are around like their late 20s and early 30s. And I feel like maybe everyone is just getting like a little bit bored with just like the acoustic guitar, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe just like I guess I can just see like a melding of just like more diverse instruments.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
also I can see it getting a lot angrier because we're headed in a horrible direction over here.
Yeah, yeah. How are you during all this madness?
I'm holding up. I'm just stationed at my parents' house, so I've got cool folks to hang out with and just doing art and stuff, trying to stay positive when I can. But, it's a
Yeah, it's good
scary
to hear.
time.
It is a scary time, yeah. Um, and coming more to you and your music career, what's sort of like a highlight for you during your career?
I think one of like the bigger things that I've done that makes me feel proud is me and a couple of my friends, like there's a few of us that put on this big music festival in Denver every year. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it this year because of COVID, but it's called Compost Heat Music Festival, and we always ask like a ton of like really cool musicians to play and stuff. And we've gotten some cool people to play, like Rob of the Taxpayers, and we got Dan Burt No Bacon from Chumbawamba one year. And like being able to like pull that kind of stuff off felt like really cool because it was a lot of work, but I feel like people thought maybe we knew more about what we were doing than what like we actually did know, but like we continuously pulled it off, which was cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the DIY aspect of like folk punk, how has that been like evident in your career or your music?
Honestly, that whole festival is just full DIY down to like the space that we use. Um, Last year, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, there was just like a downpour of rain, and we just like we're not expecting it. Like the whole festival is like mostly in like a big garage, but then there's also like a huge outside common space that everyone hangs out in. So like there was just like 30 punks like or plus like just getting all this shit together to like build like a makeshift like cover out of a shit ton of tarps and like brooms. Like we had like a bunch of brooms lined up and tarps. Like seeing people work together like that's awesome. Like
Yeah,
also
that's
one year, I
awesome.
don't know what like Colorado weather is just like ridiculous. But one year we actually did have some tents to try and escape that scenario. Like just the tents with the tops, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But it started fucking hailing and winding like crazy. So again, there's like 50 punks like holding down all these tents and just like screaming. Like I was like, this is community right here.
Yeah,
Like
that's
this is like
amazing.
working together. It was sick.
They're the sort of memories you keep from all those types of festivals, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I love that kind of shit.
And how do you like write? What's your process if you're comfortable sharing?
It kind of depends on the day. Unfortunately, I haven't written that much lately, because I've been focusing on visual art and stuff.
Oh yeah,
But when I do write, um, I take a lot of notes when I'm like observing things or things people say, or, just random things. I take a lot of notes in my phone, and then I'll sit down later and be like, can I write a poem out of this? Like, what do I want to talk about? So I do that a lot. Also, sometimes I'll just like start playing something, and then I'll kind of like sing a melody for it and then try and like click and drag words in my brain to see what would fit with that melody, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Where do you see yourself and your music career sort of going in the near future? Are there any sort of projects you're thinking of starting or have started?
Actually, on November 1st, our first ever Chad Hates George vinyl comes out, so that's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
No new songs there, just old ones. This year, I've been working on an album with one of my bands called Chatterbox and the Latter-day Satanists, and we're putting out an album on Thanksgiving, because there's some songs pertaining to that. So I'm really excited about that. As for my solo music, hopefully I'll be able to finish some songs, and if we stay in quarantine long enough, hopefully I'll get another album out there. But I don't want to put too much stress on myself, so we'll see.
Yeah, awesome. Sort of more sort of like direct question is what has like folk punk meant to you, and how has that changed over the years of you being in the scene?
Oh, it's been a wild ride. I think like in the beginning, folk punk was just a party for me. Um, I love playing music, but I just like always loved drinking, and I always loved um just hanging out and like partying down and stuff. But in recent years, I've noticed that I have like some addiction issues and stuff, so I've been working on that. I'm actually 55 days sober today, which I'm super stoked
Oh,
about.
that's amazing. Well done.
And so these days, folk punk is a little bit different for me. I think it's going to be strange for me to get back into the shows, but I'm excited to make memories that I actually remember
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like meet people and have like lasting connection. Um, I think that is the cool thing that will probably stay the same about folk punk is it's very come as you are,
Yeah, definitely.
accepting of all types of ways of life.
Yeah,
I hope that never changes.
yeah. It's a good one. Do you think it's sort of an observation I've had, but you can tweak it any way you like. Do you think that folk punk does have a good like community for coming past sort of substance abuse and stuff like that?
I think so, and I think that it also depends who you talk to. I mean, you would be so surprised how many people actually are in recovery that just don't like talk about it very often. Since sharing like my recovery process openly online, like a lot of people have reached out to me, and honestly, I felt like um, even more supported than I did in like active addiction. Because I mean, like I think like a lot of people, like I said, around this age, late 20s, early 30s, we've seen the world like just completely shatter into pieces our whole lives, you know. I think that that's a reason for a lot of people to drink and write the songs and stuff that they do or use whatever their drug of choice is. So I feel like a lot of people in the scene relate to each other and can comfort each other on that. So
Yeah. Would you say it's sort of like a tight community? Everyone's pretty close in it, or
I think so. I mean, it's hard for me to say from someone's standpoint that's not me, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But
Just
I
speak
feel like, I mean, I
from
feel like I
you.
have a ton of friends in the folk punk community for sure. I think everyone generally knows at least of certain bands and who people are.
Yeah, awesome. And what aspects of folk punk do you think other genres should adopt?
Like we said, like the welcoming aspect. Um, maybe like I feel like folk punk's like rather humble, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah,
Like it doesn't seem like anyone thinks like they're that much like their shit doesn't stink as much as someone else's, you know? Like it seems like everyone feels like they're on a similar level. At least I hope.
yeah, no, I'd agree. I think that's a good one. I have one last question, and then you can share anything else you wanted to if I didn't touch on anything. Um, I was just gonna ask. Oh, I've forgotten. Oh yeah. Any up and coming artists or awesome artists that you think people should listen to?
My friend will hate that I'm like mentioning this on folk punk because he's like he's you know how like some people are like I'm not folk punk. I'm like, well, what if you are? Like I don't see some people see like a negative connotation there. Anyway, his project is called Recession Proof, and he does all the singing, all the instruments, records and mix and masters all by himself, and it's incredible. If you're like trying to listen to anything that's like US politics shit.
Yeah. Awesome.
Ludlow is also really great. They touch on some uh great topics and stuff. Rent Strike is one of my favorite bands ever. They're just awesome. Oh, my friends Bird Teeth. They live in Washington. They're phenomenal. Trying to think. There's like way too many to even think. I'll have to send you a list of some bands to check out.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add it in the description so everyone can access it.
Cool.
Yeah, but is there anything else you really want to like say to, I don't know, anyone who watches this about folk punk or you and your music, just anything you feel like you want to get out there?
Just keep fighting the good fight, I guess. I don't know, like, whatever it is, being healthy or, smashing the fash.
Yeah,
Just staying up in general, it's really hard right now, but if we stick together, then we can get through this, pull through.